Episode 110 of the podcast. What is the difference between us as groomers having a hard time getting a grooming done and the dog having a hard time while you're getting a grooming done? Can a dog who's holding still be having a behavior problem? Find out this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. As a groomer, sometimes we're grooming along and we're not experiencing any resistance from the dog. That's actually pretty common. And I think that trainers don't realize how many dogs are simply good for grooming. But I want you to think, maybe sometimes we aren't noticing that the dog is still having a difficult time. So when should we address a behavior problem? And what is that behavior problem? Well, I think we follow the 3 C's, calm, comfortable, and cooperative. Just because a dog isn't giving us a challenging time with our tools, that dog still might not be calm. That dog still might not be comfortable. That dog might be cooperating, but not all 3 of the 3 C's. So we should be thinking about the behavior, because when is a behavior or training problem happening is when we're continuing to push forward with a dog who is uncomfortable, when a dog who is still not understanding the process or not enjoying the process. And even though today we're not having trouble, we're able to get the job done, that same dog later on in life, maybe they're a little bit sore, or now they're elderly and they're getting a little bit deaf and a little bit blind. And what has always been stressful is now more stressful. And then we hit a line and suddenly it's like, I don't know, he used to be so good and now he's not anymore. And what the heck happened? What did you do? Which, all right, I got a total side note. That's a classic thing between my husband and I, because something will happen and he'll look at me and be like, what did you do? And it has nothing to do with me. But I want you to think about that. A dog could be behaving well enough for us to get the grooming done, but still be in discomfort. So should we address that, right? What is the difference? Where is the line between the 3 C's of calm, comfortable, and cooperative, and a dog who is still stressed, anxious, scared, frustrated, or uncomfortable? Because if the dog is being good for grooming, should we care about what's happening between his ears? Or what's happening below the surface, just under the surface? And I'm going to say, that's where I tend to get dog customers. That's where owners find me, because the dog is now having an issue when they never had an issue before. But if you look closer, it seems this dog has been having an issue the whole time. And while we're able to get the job done, or the owner's able to get the job done, or whoever, like they've been able to go through the vet visit, but if they're kind of wide-eyed and panting and stiff and able to let you just reposition them and don't fight the dryer and don't fight you at all, but they're still wide-eyed, they're panting, they're stiff, they're anxious, they're, slinking around and not wanting to walk in the grooming shop or not wanting to walk in the vet's office, or they see you pull out the ear cleaner in the house and they're like, oh crap, and they're slinking around, right? Like, even though that dog is allowing you to do the thing, emotionally, what's going on between their ears is still very important. That brain matter is still really important, because this is what they're behaving like right now, and it's mild. Like, they're able to cope well enough for you to get the thing done. And that's a good starting point to say, all right, well, let's see if we can push the boundaries a little bit and help you be comfortable with this, so that in the future, as a dog ages and starts having some health problems, they don't fall apart under the pressure. That they don't fall apart under the stress of it all. Or so that you don't have video of like, okay, I was watching my own trim and I look over and my God, everyone's telling me like the video that I thought was like really good trimming and they're like, that dog looks so stressed. And I didn't even notice because this dog is being still. This dog is letting me do things. So we need to really take a look and continuously evaluate the dogs on our table. Or the dog at home when you're doing them on your own, or the dog in the vet office. I know I speak to groomers so much more, but I want you to think we need to continuously evaluate that dog for their comfort level. And one of the ways that I do that is I continuously have my hands checking to see if this dog is loose or stiff. Because more so than panting, panting is definitely a sign. Panting could be I'm just really hot. Panting could be I'm really excited. And panting can be stress. Panting can lead to stress and lead to overheating regardless of what the emotion was behind it, because now they're breathing harder and faster. So panting is something we want to kind of minimize anyway, but it's a good sign that like, oh, let's get that taken care of. I don't want you sitting here panting the whole time. Like, can we calm you down? Can we take that down a notch? I think that's an important one to start with. We need to think about if this dog is loose or stiff. And that's one that I'm always checking with my hands. And that's something that I think is easy for groomers to do just with the way that we're holding equipment and touching the dogs. It's going to be a weird process at first because we're used to just working on the dog and thinking about the coat and thinking about the skin and thinking about the lines that we're doing and not necessarily how stiff or loose that dog is. But a dog who's standing still, for example, a dog who is standing still, I want to be able to feel if I press my hand up against their hip, is there just a little bit of wiggle? Right? Just a little bit. Does it feel soft? Does it feel like they kind of wobble a little bit? Or are they stiff? Are they rigid? Are they ready to spring into action? Because that's what stiff and rigid means to me. Stiff and rigid is like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. They're bracing for the next thing. They're ready to pop. They're wound up. They're ready to pop at any minute and they're just holding it together. They're barely holding it together. And if you think about it that way, it's like, oh yeah, that's not the mindset I want this dog to be in. Even if it's an improvement from where we were before, it just means that we still need to make more improvements and to continue to address what's going on in that dog's brain. What's going on with that dog's opinion about the tools that we're using or the process that we're doing or the area that we're touching, but to help that dog be comfortable with it. Because I'll tell you what, staying stiff and braced is a dog who is anxious. A dog who is uncomfortable. They can't help but be, uncomfortable if they're super, super stiff. And if you're wondering about that, go ahead, spend a minute just standing and being super, super stiff. Widen your eyes, look around everything around you like, holy crap, and widen your eyes and stiffen your body and think about how darned uncomfortable that is. We want them to relax. And one of the ways that I think is really easy for us as groomers to assess that is to have our hand on the dog and just check, right? I mean, if you're drying a dog, you often have a hand on the dog and a hand on the dryer. I'm petting often with one hand, and that's not like fast air guitar petting, like you see owners do. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And that really, really fast, like they're strumming their dog like it's an air guitar and they're playing some 80s rock band music, like that. No, it's nice calm petting, kind of a massage, and that's going to help you feel if the dog is loose. Massage into them, help them loosen up. And many dogs will loosen up a little bit if you're touching them like that. Like, hey, buddy, a little bit of massage. Can you calm down for me? And many of them do. But it's still important. And I find it's one of the things that we as groomers and we as vet techs, because I used to be a vet tech too, and as trainers, sometimes we miss that subtle bit where a dog is still very apprehensive. A dog is still being really stiff and staring at us out of the corner of their eye, and they're giving the whale eye, and you can see the whites of their eyes are really wide, and they're staying really, really stiff, whether they're panting or not, and they're braced for action. That's a dog who is not comfortable and is so close to either learning to be comfortable or learning to spring into action, right? Like they're kind of on that line. Like this could go terribly, terribly wrong the next grooming, right? Or it could be better the next grooming. So we need to stack the deck so that we're helping this dog be better for the next grooming, that we're addressing this need for like, whoa, you are super stiff and stressed out, and I want you to calm down a bit. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Now, one of the things that you can look at too is when that moment happens. Because if you're looking at a dog the whole time and constantly assessing for those 3 C's, is this dog calm, comfortable, and cooperative at this point? And notice when it changes. Because a lot of dogs aren't stiff the whole time. There's just one thing or 2 things that worry them. Maybe it's sounds. Maybe it's an area of their body. Maybe it's the duration, how long they've been doing something. And that one's actually, I think, much more common, but harder for some of us to notice. Like, yeah, this dog has about a 20-minute attention span, and we're trying to push it to an hour and a half. And we start seeing it as, oh my God, he's so hard to groom. But really, he was really easy in the first 20 minutes because, you know, as an example, a young golden that I was working with last week who, like, just his brain can't handle anything more than about 20 minutes. You know, he's young, he's crazy, he's silly, you know, super sweet, nice guy. But after 20 minutes, he's like, why are they still touching me? And we're still on a table. And what is going on? You know, so we need to think about helping them be calm, because that's the long-term goal that we want. Because a dog who is calm, comfortable, and cooperative is going to be learning that grooming isn't scary, that grooming is being done by someone they can trust. And when their health begins to fail them later, when they have a health problem or a medical issue, that's not going to be a trigger that sends them over the edge. Or it's much less likely to be a trigger that sends them over the edge. Because I want you to think about those dogs who are stiff. They're on the edge, right? We can help them be more calm about it, help build some confidence, or we can wait for something to happen and that dog to decide, you know what, this is too scary and I can't handle it anymore. So it's really important to look at the difference between if we're able to get our job done and maybe the dog is stressed or maybe the dog isn't, but it doesn't matter to me because I got my job done. And we need to think about like that, or I always need to think about if this dog is stressed, even if they're letting me get the job done. Even if this dog is letting me get the job done, I need to think about that, right? So another example, if I'm at the end of a grooming and the owner's like, can you just get a little bit more on his head, a little bit more on the top of his head? I'm like, he is done. His brain is toast. He's cooked. He is finished for today. You know, it's like, oh, but he's being so good and I just want that little bit more. And I'm like, this is my professional opinion. I'm not going to continue doing until he has a flip out. But he's being so good now, which is precisely why in this case, with the progress that we've made today, with a dog who has known behavior problems, I am not going to continue to try to get that little spot. And it's a hard sell sometimes. And it can be a hard sell if you're a groomer working for somebody else and you have to tell an employer like, you know what? I did my best on that head, but I am not going to nitpick this dog to the point where he now has a bad experience and we undo all of that hard work we did today, right? Just because I can get more done right now doesn't mean I should. And I know I've mentioned it before, the humanity over vanity. Usually we're talking about mats, but I want you to think about behavior too. Humanity over vanity. Let's let this dog learn that this is safe and it doesn't hurt before we worry about if this trim is perfect. And that's a tough sell. But, and again, I've mentioned this many times before, from a business point of view, right? Put on your business thinking cap right now. Behavior problems are when dogs get hurt, people get hurt, equipment gets broken, owners get upset. I'll go even further to say with, multimedia the way it is, mass media the way it is, that's when reputations get completely destroyed, businesses get destroyed, right? It's not good business to push through a behavior problem. We should be addressing them. And when we make progress, measurable progress for a dog who is calm, comfortable, and cooperative, right? That's a lasting impression that the dog has. Like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad. So one of the things I want you to think about when you're talking to groomers or listening to groomers talking about behavior is, okay, how will this apply to the particular dog that maybe I'm thinking of right now? Does this apply to Sparky, but maybe not apply to Bella, right? Like, I want you to be thinking about that. Which type of dog problems do I see that might apply to? And also be thinking about what is the end goal of using that type of a technique. What is the end goal? Does it work toward this dog being calm, comfortable, and cooperative? Or is it work toward this dog being stiff, anxious, and cooperative? Because stiff, anxious, and cooperative isn't a great goal. That dog is still stiff and letting you do stuff, but that's going to change. That's very, very likely to go wrong and go poorly in the future. So we are thinking about the future. We're thinking about our owners, which is super important. We need our owners to be involved with this as a safety policy, which I've mentioned before, right? Like, talk to owners like, hey, I need to keep your dog safe. And, here's what I do if I run into a dog who is having a hard time. Because dogs are having a hard time. They're not giving us a hard time. They're having a hard time. And I want you to be more aware of when you're working with a dog who isn't giving you a hard time, but might still be having a hard time. Because this is every 4 to 6 weeks for 15 years. And that's usually what I tell my owners. Like, that should be what we're shooting for. God knows I would love for them to all live so much longer than that. But if you think about every 4 to 6 weeks for 15 years, that's a lot of tension building up and piling up if we allow it to be tense. So if we just think back, like, let's keep assessing what that dog is going through. Even if they seem to be being good for us, are they having an okay time with it? I know that sometimes people think that's wishy-washy and fur mommy. And okay, I'll own that. However, in my experience, if we help the dog have a better experience, we are setting them up for a lifetime of good grooming. A lifetime of good grooming experiences. And a dog who is calm, comfortable, and cooperative is a dog that we can do our best work on. Quite frankly, that's why we got into this. We want to do cute haircuts. So if we're doing cute trims on dogs who are calm, comfortable, and cooperative, owners are happy, the dogs are happy, we're happy. The chances of getting hurt are so much lower. The chances of dogs getting hurt, so much lower, right? I mean, that's just ideal. That's great. That's good for business. It's good for your career. It's good for your long-term health, emotionally and physically, because some of these dogs, if we have to keep pushing it, turn into a rodeo. God knows I have attended so many full-on dog rodeos where it's, multiple people piling on a dog to get something done. Now, most of that was as a vet tech. When you're in a situation where, okay, well, we need to get this dog knocked out so that we can do wound treatment or whatever, or x-rays or whatever the heck it was, right? Most of those were as a vet tech where we just kept piling people on. Because as groomers, I think we should be thinking more in terms of like, this isn't a haircut. Like, but I've done it as a groomer too. There have been plenty of times before I did things the way I do them now, where it was pushing a dog far past what they could handle. Now, the other thing that comes with that is when a dog is having a hard time, but they're still cooperating with us, and they're on the table, or they're in the tub, or they're under the dryer, and they're still wide-eyed, they're panting, they're super stiff, they're stressed out, but they're allowing us to do the job. Often what happens is we tell owners he was really good. Yeah, right? Of course we do. We're like, oh, he was a good boy. No, he was fine. And what we're really saying is nothing we can't handle, right? But is the dog having an okay time? Not really. Not really. Does the dog have more training that needs to be done? Yeah. Yep, certainly. Certainly there's more work that we can be doing and that owners can be doing. And should we be telling owners, you know what, he's still really nervous about a lot of this. And let me tell you what we're working on. Because I'll also tell you, a lot of owners, it came out of the blue for them that like their groomer is suddenly like, you know what, he's just reached a point where we can't groom him anymore. And they're like, you never told me you had problems with him before. Well, I mean, before we could always get it done. But they had no idea that the groomer had problems with him before. And I think many of us, as people move around and you get a new customer and the dog's like 6 or 7 years old and the owner's like, oh, the groomer said he was always fine. Or I don't know, they never said anything about it. And this dog is crazy, right? Some of that's because what they're hearing is the dog is fine because the groomer didn't really express we were able to get it done despite his behavior. That's an important distinction, right? I don't really want us getting things done despite his behavior. We should be getting things done thinking about what behavior problems they're having and building good experiences and addressing behavior issues as they come. We should be thinking about what's going on in their brain, in between their ears, and under the surface of their skin and coat. We should be thinking about that stuff. And we should be telling owners. Now, when you talk to owners, you should be thinking about this is their fur baby. Even if you're not into the whole fur baby thing, that's okay. But this is their dog. This is their family member that they love and adore. And we should be telling them, hey, I love this little guy. He's super, super sweet. He's super nice. He also is getting stressed out about whatever, right? We should be telling them that. We should be letting them know so that they're not shocked by it when he's 12 and, has an injured paw and suddenly that's the moment where from here on in nobody's able to touch him for grooming. And it happens all the time. And some of that's because we don't necessarily notice that a dog is still having stress on the table if they're being cooperative. We need all three of the C's: calm, comfortable, and cooperative, not just cooperative. And so it is important to make sure that we're looking at the dog and thinking about, is this dog calm, comfortable, and cooperative? Is this dog okay with what we're doing, or is this dog stiff? It's really important, and it can be really difficult to spot, and it can be really tempting to just keep pushing through. So tempting. But that's my big one this week, is really thinking about what's going on between their ears, what's going on under the surface, even if they're letting us do the grooming. Even if you don't feel like there's a problem getting the job done, there still could be a problem behavior. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.